sure this is working. Good. This is an experiment today, so I'm just getting ready, and then we'll be good to go. We are going to be talking about being the light of the world. Jesus is the light of the world. So the best place to start to emphasize that for me is in the dark. So I'm going to go in the dark. So as I've looked at the Old Testament, it started there really. The main emphasis for me, and particularly as we've been looking over the last few weeks about the greatness of God, the majesty of God, and the very fact that he is God, and just the bigness of him, has made me really realize I don't know him that well, and how hard it would be to grasp him as God. And so I look back through the Old Testament, and we'll look at some verses in a minute, but this was just an image that God brought to my mind of what it's like having Jesus as the light of the world. And if you go back to the Old Testament and you look through, and I look at Moses in particular, and looked at some of the conversations he had with God, there was a real sense of God's bigness, because the phrase that he uses to describe himself is I am. And that when he spoke to his people or through the prophets, that phrase was used, I am. And if you imagine now, if you're looking at the black screen and you can hear my voice, this was people's experience of God. There was a voice that said, I am. And as you go through the Old Testament and look at when he reveals himself to various prophets, conversations with Moses, he often says, I am the Lord, your God. So he has to introduce himself, because you try and imagine how he communicates when as people we're looking at a blank canvas, if you like, and there's just a voice. And beyond that, there's another verse we'll look at, but he says, I am the God who did this and did this and did this. So he almost has to go before his introduction with a little history lesson to remind them of who God is and what he's done. And so the personal element of God, he's very active in communicating, but we are very restricted in understanding him because we cannot see him. And even now, if you're listening to my voice, which is lovely to listen to, I'm aware of that, and I actually have a face for radios, so this is probably the best format, but actually, even now you find yourself switching off, thinking, what is he trying to communicate? Or he's not really there. Is he there? Is it my imagination? And so when we come to seeing Jesus as the light of the world, when you look at the darkness and there is not a visual aid to God, the importance of of coming as a human was solely for our benefit, to be able to grasp who he is. So I've just used this image, if I can get this to work, to demonstrate that. This is impossible in the dark. Which is Jesus is the light of the world. So at the moment, if I am God, I'm telling you I am who I say I am. And then Jesus comes into the world, and all of a sudden, there is an illumination of God. And this light comes between us, and we cannot see the Father, if you imagine I'm the Father, except through the light. So as the light is added, then our vision of God is made with more clarity. Now the irony is it's the other way around. So the human would be the light, and the light and the being would be God. But for this instance, this is the difference it makes. So all of a sudden, God is no longer an invisible God, but a visible God. And because as humans, the way we are constrained in our own understanding of things and our own expectations of how things are, this helps us and enables us to be able to see as humans a part of God that we could not see when it was darkness. And so the other thing in terms of this as well, obviously with Jesus, is that it is dark now, but as soon as the light is on, that darkness cannot get rid of that light. It cannot overcome the light. The light is on. I'm in a dark room, but that darkness has disappeared. And the brighter the light gets, the more I see around me. And it doesn't just illuminate God, but actually illuminates the things around us. So if you imagine stumbling through earth and through the world in darkness, thinking, what's next? I can't see the wood for the trees. I can't see what's in front of me. There's no clarity. There's no direction. I don't know what I'm going to bump into. But when the light comes, there is clarity. There is direction. And Jesus always says, those that see me see the Father. His role there was very much as he walked the earth. I point to the Father. This reveals the Father. So I'm going to come out of here now because here's our downstairs toilet. Not very pleasant. But I just wanted to start with that image. So I'm just going to come off my phone and go back onto the computer. So bear with me. Okay, can you hear me now? Is that all right? Good, sound. So, very strange beginning, I know, but for me, the importance and the vast difference between darkness and light is extremely evident when you look at the two close together. And so, as I said, with the start of God saying to Moses, it was very much a verbal communication with him, and he sent people to speak to Israel and to people that God wanted to speak to. And I've just looked at a couple of verses. So there's Exodus where God says to Moses, Exodus 3, I am who I am. And he said, say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. Now, I don't know if somebody turned up on a Sunday and we had no context for God other than I am, and someone said, I am has sent me to you. What would that bring to your mind? I mean, you've got to think pre-Jesus and the cross and everything we know. How could we become close to God and see so much of him with that one term? But the I am bit links really nicely when we look at the character of God and we look at him and say, I am light. I am love. I am goodness. I am justice. All these things. This is what God is. It isn't that he does justice or he makes light. He is light. And so I am fits all the things we've been looking at over the last few months in the way that he describes himself. And then in Numbers, just an example of the way he introduces himself to people. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am the Lord your God. And it's this remembering himself to people that can't visually see him, but reminding them of who he is. But it's still hard for people to grasp who he is, and that ongoing relationship with God was difficult. Hence why I had to keep saying, I am the Lord your God, and remind them, I'm the same God that did this for you and was with you in these moments. So Jesus came to earth to make an invisible God visible. And why? It was a visible form of God that we would be able to relate to and understand and deepen our relationship with him. It was solely for our benefit. Before I look at Jesus the light, there's a couple of things just worth noting. And when you think of darkness and you think of light, there's certain characteristics that you might come up with that. So for darkness, I put that there's fear, there's uncertainty, there's a kind of aimless wandering, there's a bit of a stab in the dark, hoping to find the right way, the right path, the right target. And all of these things could be described through darkness. And in light, when you see light, there's a sense of clarity. So you've often got the cartoons where the light bulb goes on above someone's head. There is an image of understanding something when the lights go on. You know, it might be a lovely phrase that I use, like the lights are on but nobody's home. You know, the light is a representation of something, isn't it? And we're saying the light does reveal. It can bring hope because you can see the future. You can see ahead of you. And it can bring direction because there is a path that we can follow because it is lit up. We stay away from the edge. And just as an aside, I think that the contrast of the two, I knew a guy a while back who is, I say a rap artist, he did a bit of everything, but he did a lovely, what I would class as poem about graveyards and just the respect and the peace and the just awe sometimes walking around a church graveyard on a sunny day with the trees in bloom and just your experience at that moment. And then it's contrast that with the night, when you walk around a graveyard at night, and that the same place, the same feelings you've had in the day can be totally altered by the fact that it's dark and there's strange noises and the fear that can come into the same place where earlier on in the day you felt a kind of reverent and respect for what's gone on around. And the contrast again is the same place. The only thing that's changed is the light and the darkness. And so what does light bring? It does bring hope. And why Jesus is hope is because when he came, he made God visible to us to show a path that was clear. And there's a wow moment in John. I'm just going to read. I've called it a wow moment. It just says, so the Jews said to him, you are not 50 years old and you have seen Abraham. And Jesus said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. So they picked up stones to throw at him, but Jesus hid himself and went out of the temple. And when you look at the context of God in the Old Testament and their reference point for I am, that moment was a moment when Jesus has identified himself publicly saying, I am God, a visible person of God. And for me, that would have been an amazing moment to witness. And then in John 8:12, Jesus spoke to them saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. And it's not something we can generate. It's not we can't go out and create this light. It's something where Jesus just says, if you follow me, I am the light of the world, then I will lead you. And you can't lead you through darkness. If you can't see where you're going, it brings fear. If you can see where you're going and Jesus is leading you, it brings comfort, it brings security, it brings safety, it brings sure footing. And that is what Jesus offers through becoming man, becoming human. And then the third part of this then is we obviously had the darkness and Jesus came in, follow me, I'm the light. But it doesn't just stop there. As his church, we also reflect God and he calls us to be lights in this world. So if you look at the life of Jesus, which is always a good place to look, he went to places and to people that normal society would shun. I've just written a couple of things down here where he went to, excuse me, he went to places where there was sickness. He went to places where people were dead. He went to people that were unclean. He went to people that were seen as more sinful than others. He went to the prostitutes. He went to places where there was darkness. But at no point did he fear that by going into the darkness, his light would be put out. Because he knew his light would bring light to the darkness. And as we walk in this earth and on this earth, into our communities, workplaces, beyond, it's quite a challenge to me when we sit in the same promise there. When we go as people of light into the darkness, do we have fear that that darkness is going to overwhelm us? Or do we really have that faith that as we walk, the light of God goes with us and shines into the darkness and will overcome the darkness? So we're called to play our part. In the Sermon on the Mount, in Matthew 5, it says, you are the light of the world, a city set on a hill that cannot be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but they put it on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. So we are watched. And it seems like an obvious thing, but as the church of God, and as we align ourselves with the Bible, then people see that light, and we are reflecting his presence. And as we've looked on the evenings that Steve's talking about when we come together, we've looked at a few avenues, and we'll look at some more in terms of being a blessing, in terms of being present with others, in terms of showing hospitality. And the last one we'll look at together is our dialogue, how we talk to people. So when we're with Jesus and his light infiltrates our life, it should bring clarity, it should bring joy, it should bring security, safety, all of these things that equip us to go on the journey that God's called us to go on. As we meet with others, do we provide that same platform that as people meet with us, they come into the authority, the love of Jesus, and they say, do you know, this is the light of the world that brings hope. So to a people that are hopeless, to a people that feel that they might already have things in place, when they meet with you and with me, do they have that positive reflection time when we leave, that we have shown them the light? And it isn't because we're amazing and we know what we're doing. It's actually God's presence has opened their eyes to feel like there is hope and a way out of any situations they may be in. In addition to what they have, if they think they've got everything, is there something more? And that's a good question to ask ourselves, and it can start in the church. It's good to ask each other, maybe, you know, when you spend time with me, how do you feel after we've finished? That's a very sobering thought. I know with me, normally you're all quite happy and you've had a good time, but other people may well struggle. So no, but it is a good question to ask, because this is what we're called to be: light, bring hope, bring joy, bring purpose to people. And that's what Jesus asked us to do. In Philippians 2:14, it says, do all things without grumbling or disputing, that you may be blameless and innocent, children of God without blemish in the midst of a crooked and twisted generation, among whom you shine as lights of the world. So it's a very clear mandate there, that as we shine as lights of the world, don't grumble, don't dispute. So obviously discuss, use a different word apart from dispute, but discuss, but do it without grumbling. Let's go and love one another. Look at Jesus's life. Look where he went. So it's a really simple message, but a very challenging one to grasp for me. That the big thing, as I've looked at this again, because it is a familiar topic and I'm aware of that, but it is that fear of the light being extinguished when we go into a place that maybe we perceive as a dark area, somewhere that might be hostile to God or hostile to you. And actually, God said, go there and take the light there. And Jesus walked where the Father said go, he went. And it didn't matter who it was, where it was. He knew that the darkness couldn't extinguish the light. And that's the confidence that we can have. So we've seen God's greatness. Jesus came so that we could understand God better through a framework that we could understand in our small minds compared to God. A light that we've been given, that we carry, that we walk forward to, that can never be overcome. The darkness cannot overcome it. Neither do they exist side by side. You can't have darkness next to light. So as the light goes in, that darkness cannot stay there. It goes, it flees. Jesus had that in his spirit when he walked to places. That darkness couldn't be in the same place, it gone. When we walk in places, the light comes in, the darkness cannot exist in the light of Jesus. And Jesus is the light of the world. As a church that follow him, we now share in that, and we are lights to the world. And it's a chance for people through us to see the attributes of God in his church to those around us. So that is that. Ta-da! Stevie, back to you.